Hi, hello, and thank you for joining us today. You are logged into the joint CMLS, Council of Multiple Listing Services, and RESO Real Estate Standards Organization webinar. What is the RESO Web API? We would like to let you know that this webinar is being recorded. We will also post it to the RESO and councilofmls.org website. And we will also send all the attendees a link to the recording. My name is Danae Evans, and I am the CEO of CMLS. And CMLS is the National Association for MLSs, working to bring you important industry information and keep you educated on all things MLS. If you're not already a member of CMLS, I would encourage you to visit our website at cmls.org and look into joining our organization. And we want you to be part of the conversation and help shape our industry. I am also going to mention that as of this morning, our website was not up, and we are working on that, so hopefully we'll have that fixed by the end of this, and I'll let you know if that gets corrected before the end, and then you can check out membership. Also like to let you know, hopefully most of you have heard about it, but our annual conference at CMLS, this year CMLS 2016, it is this September 21st through the 23rd in my hometown of Las Vegas, Nevada, and will be hosted by the Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors, and along with one of my CMLS directors, Ms. Stephanie Hill. We're working on putting together a really amazing agenda with speakers that will be both inside and outside our industry, new faces, and include all the relevant information and important topics for MLSs so you can help shape the future of our industry and know what's happening and what you need to do. We will follow up our speakers with our panel discussions, allow for some question and answers, and really help you know how to apply these topics at your local MLS. As most of you know, hopefully will help you educate today, is MLSs owned and operated by realtor associations need to be RESO API compliant by the end of this month, June 30th. So today's topic is, what is the RESO API? Our audience for today is pretty general for the webinar. It's the MLS leaders and staff, and we're happy to have all of you join us today to keep educated and understand how this affects you. Originally, last our numbers, we had over 250 people registered for the event today, so that's very exciting. CMLS has made it a priority to work with RESO and to help educate our membership, and one of the ways we decided to do that was to hold informational webinars to help get the information out about important topics, and specifically today, the Web API. We did a couple last year. If anybody's interested on the data dictionary, we did 3 webinars, and great attendance to those, and actually what was really exciting is several of those recorded webinars were watched over and over, so those numbers are exciting to see that the information is helpful, and that you guys are using those as a resource to get the information. Today's call will cover what to expect during the certification process. We have some great panelists to share their expert opinions and insight on how this is going to happen. We will have a question and answer session at the end, so please, as we go along, type your questions into the bar on the right. And we have the call scheduled for 1 hour, and on the previous webinars, we had such great questions going that we actually extended it and continue to take questions until we felt we had most of those done. So this call is scheduled for 1 hour. You can feel free to drop off that, and we will end the recording after 1 hour. But if there's still additional questions, we will continue to take those until we have hopefully answered a significant portion of those. With that, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Jeremy Crawford. He is the Executive Director of RESO. I think Jeremy joined RESO over a year ago, and was previously with COO with MLS Listings in California, and I know he has a lot of other experience prior to that, so very fortunate to have Jeremy as the Executive Director of RESO, expert on this stuff. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him, and he will introduce you to the panelists, and I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Danae. Good morning to everyone on the West Coast, and good afternoon to those of you that are on the East Coast. I really appreciate you joining us today. It is very exciting for us to see the level of registration for today's webinar. I wanted to first thank Danae and the Council of MLS for jointly helping host this, as well as the WAVE group who's been assisting with this. With the Real Estate Standards Organization and the Council of MLS, we try to work in tandem so we can provide the best set of information for you regarding MLS best practices, and as those travel down into the path of the real estate standards and how you need to operate within the community regarding MLS data. And we really have a great relationship with the Council of MLS and work together to try to solve the business issues that you have day in and day out, the needs of your brokerages needing to transact property and using MLS data in their products and services. So we try to have a great, strong partnership and continue that to work together for your benefit to solve some of those issues. For today, just to give you a high-level overview, many of you are familiar with RESO. However, there is some of you that probably are not that familiar with RESO. I will provide a very brief corporate overview of the Real Estate Standards Organization and the broker's perspective of standards, just briefly on some industry survey responses we've received across the nation. And then we'll dive directly into the heart of the RESO Web API. What is it? What do you need to do to adopt it? And what can RESO do to help you adopt it correctly and work with you as well as your MLS technology provider? We'll show you the benefits of the RESO Web API, the steps to acquire RESO certification if you would like to do so. And then we have, as Danae mentioned, two expert panelists today to discuss their points of view. Rebecca Jensen, who is the President and CEO of the Midwest Regional Data, which is the MLS in Chicago, one of the largest MLSs in the nation. She is also a RESO board member and the RESO secretary for 2016. Michael Werzer, who is the President and CEO of FBS, the makers of Flex MLS software for MLSs, and Michael is a RESO board member as well as a CMLS board member. They'll be able to provide you some industry insights as well as some best practices guidances on how to use RESO standards effectively in your local marketplace, what the benefits are, and what steps you should take long-term to make sure that your brokers have the products and tools that can support their business through the benefits of utilizing standards which are created at the Real Estate Standards Organization. First, let me look at the RESO corporate overview for you. Just some brief bullet points is our goals at RESO have been pretty consistent over many years. We've been around as a loosely coupled group since the late 90s, moving into an official nonprofit corporation in 2011, and our vision is to really create a streamlined real estate technology industry. We would like to create standards that help the brokers, the MLSs, and all of the technology partners work together to be able to come up with common solutions without the hurdles of a proprietary environment. So our goal is to create and promote the adoption of standards driving efficiency throughout the real estate industry for all of the parties involved. I do like to educate everyone that at RESO, we really don't ourselves create the standards. We foster standards creation, but the standards are actually created based upon your input into RESO. So we want to help facilitate that as best as we can. As I mentioned, we are a nonprofit membership-based organization. We have over 500 members that are contributing to RESO standards today. Our membership comprises of the National Association of Realtors, brokerages, and brokerages cover franchise brokerages, individual brokerages, brokers, and individual agents that all do participate within RESO standards at different levels. The Association of Realtors and multiple listing organizations are RESO members, and membership there covers all employees of an MLS and association for full member benefits and participation within RESO standards. Technology partners, and technology partners include MLS technology providers such as FBS, as well as technology partners that are creating products and services for brokers and agents to help them transact business. Good examples are IDX providers, statistical and CMA companies, etc. And then we also allow for other nonprofit entities, such as the Council of MLS, as membership in their own class within RESO. All of those members sit down together without their competitive hats on and work together to solve business needs through standards creation and adoption. Within our community at RESO, we not only provide the ability to help facilitate standards and manage those standards, but we also provide certification services and professional guidance to ensure that standards are adopted and implemented correctly in all of your market areas with all of your market needs. So I would want to remind everyone that our certification services are truly educational help and working with you to make sure you and your technology partners have implemented standards correctly. And we will do whatever it takes to make sure that you have those correct, and that is part of our certification services. So we don't just run tests on you for certification. We truly provide some professional guidance and work with you every step of the way to make sure that the standards are adopted correctly so everyone in the industry can reap the benefits of those standards. Our work products at RESO are the technical data standards which we create based upon your input and facilitate. We have two sets of standards. We have transportation standards which help define the roadways of delivering MLS data from point A to point B. And we also have data definition standards, which many of you are very familiar with considering your past work on implementing the RESO Data Dictionary. And the RESO Data Dictionary helps define the fields that are within your MLS so they are common at a national level and they can help provide consistency across the nation. We do have two transportation standards, RETS, which has been around for roughly 15 years, and then the new Web API, which we are discussing today. Everything that we do with our standards are free and they're open source. Anyone can download publicly available ratified standards and use those within their business needs as they feel the need to do so. The standards that are created are through members only. Only members have the opportunity to provide input into the standards. That provides a level of intellectual property protection to make sure the standards are free and open source to everyone. And our standards are created through volunteer committees and work groups that comprise of all of our member classes and all of the employees and licensees from brokerages, agents, MLSs, associations, and technology partners. And I would like to have a cry out for help. Our biggest challenge at RESO is making sure we have everyone at the table to participate within the standards. We would not want to create standards that did not have local market input into particular fields that might exist in the data dictionary or transportation needs of data for technology partners and MLSs to be able to deliver that. So I would encourage you to please participate in the standards and in the work groups that we host at RESO. Most of our work groups are monthly one-hour meetings that are virtual in nature. So hopefully after this webinar you can take a look and join some work groups, or look at just putting your toe in the water and joining a work group and checking out a call of a work group to see what it's like to participate with the standards discussion and the standards process and details. Moving forward, we did send out some broker surveys, and I wanted to provide a brief broker perspective out to you today from the responses we received all across the nation. Is today one of the biggest broker challenges is inconsistent data fields and the difficulties with MLS data feeds. And this is where RESO standards come in play, specifically with the RESO Data Dictionary and the RESO Web API. 90% of the brokers feel is very important, not just important, but very important that MLSs offer consistent sets of data fields. And if technology partners had consistent data flowing across MLSs, then technology costs would go down for everyone involved. The focus would move to innovation on products, not the proprietary work that needs to set up a product, but actually providing new products and services and focusing on that creation of innovation. Bug fixes will be faster to implement. Enhancements are faster time to market, and it's a quicker response time for all parties that are involved. And this is from the broker's perspective. In looking at two specific quotes from the brokerage community, really talks about a cohesive, synergistic environment that the brokerage would like to see between the brokers, the technology partners that they use, MLSs and MLS technology partners as well. Standards make everything more efficient, which can only create cost savings and increase speed of deployment of listing data. And the industry as a whole has a track record of not responding to change in a cohesive way. If RESO can help shape a cohesive response going forward, it's potentially huge. And again, I thank you for attending today. Today is a great example of everyone coming together to work towards a cohesive, synergistic environment so all parties in the real estate transaction can work together and RESO standards can help that process. Now let's talk about the RESO Web API. Unfortunately, at times, the discussions regarding APIs are somewhat technical in nature. So I want to provide a brief analogy out to you as to what is an actual API and then the benefits and the details of the RESO Web API. APIs have been out for many, many, many years, although we don't hear about them very often because they're usually behind the scenes. Simplistically, an API is an interface, is a set of requirements that govern how one application talks to another. If you look at the acronym Application Programming Interface, you have a program that helps multiple interfaces talk through multiple applications. And APIs are what makes it possible to move information between programs. Essentially, in our industry, moving MLS data between softwares that brokers, agents, and MLSs use. APIs allow the opportunity for other apps to piggyback on their offerings, and I have some great real-world examples. I personally like Words with Friends, and it allows you to invite people to play through Facebook contacts. That is an example of Words with Friends utilizing the Facebook Contact API. With Yelp, you can display restaurants on a Google map. That's an example of Google Maps API. For your MLS systems locally there, you also have map functionality with Google and Bing, providing the location of homes, driving directions, providing walk score information, integrating tax data into the property records of the MLS. Those are all powered through APIs. So they have existed in our environment for many, many years, and we've used them. We just haven't talked about them specifically enough to be able to wrap our hands around what that actually is. Fortunately, behind the scenes, the developers work hard to make sure this type of functionality exists. For an MLS specifically, an API can actually eliminate the need to copy listing data from the MLS source out to other servers. This is really paving the way for the MLS to be the original and only source of the data and allow for other product vendors to utilize MLS data without having to copy the MLS data set. The RESO API, what is it specifically and why is it out there? What are the benefits? So the RESO Web API is a brand new specification of standards. And in doing so, the RESO Transport Work Group looked at the opportunity to utilize global technologies that were already available to help jumpstart the industry with utilizing APIs. While somewhat technical, the RESO Web API leverages OData and OpenID Connect. OData is an open source standard developed by large companies such as Microsoft, IBM, and Oracle to simplify the sharing of data across disparate applications and be able to provide multiple uses of the data through the internet, in the cloud, and on mobile devices specifically. OpenID Connect is the authentication mechanism within the RESO Web API, which allows users to authenticate securely without having to manage passwords. Essentially, you could use your Gmail login to log in to the Flex MLS system through OpenID Connect. And that would not be sharing your Gmail password out to Flex MLS, but that would be a trusted connection between the two using the OpenID Connect. These are global technology standards, and many of these standards have products and tools available for developers to use today without having to create things from the ground up. From the RESO perspective of benefits out to the MLS, the RESO Web API is very lightweight in nature. It's designed to support product features and functions in a mobile environment without having to replicate MLS data. Many times your mobile application would only need to pull a small set of data, and it would not want to pull the entire MLS data set onto a mobile device such as an iPhone or an Android phone. With the RESO Web API, it provides a lightweight manner to pull snippets of data real time without having to replicate and store that data. It provides a faster and less expensive implementation model for products and services utilizing data. With many tool sets available today and the ease of programming within the RESO Web API standards, it allows products to come to life faster and less expensive when they need to incorporate MLS data. It delivers efficiencies in the collection and use of MLS data by everyone involved, broker participants, vendors, and MLSs. And the RESO Web API provides you the ability to use enhanced data delivery such as listing tracking information, which is a very hot topic in today's environment where brokers and agents would like to know where are their listings, how many times have they been viewed, what is the actual consumer behavior on viewing those listings so they can manage lead generation. The RESO Web API supports those enhanced data delivery models that move past the basic property records of the MLS. The Web API also allows you the opportunity to limit data sets in a more efficient manner, so those products and services which only need IDX data does allow for the ease of an MLS to configure that to deliver only IDX fields to an IDX provider. So it does support those aspects. Taking a look at some real-world technology of RESO standards, the Spark platform by FBS, as I'll demonstrate here, incorporates RESO standards of both the RESO Web API and the RESO Data Dictionary. So the RESO Web API is used to deliver, through the Spark API platform, MLS data in a RESO Data Dictionary compliant manner, allowing the opportunity to provide MLSs, IDX feeds, and VAL feeds out to the MLS members, the customers, etc. In a similar light, the Redsley platform by Zillow receives listing data from multiple MLSs and has the opportunity then to provide that out in a RESO API for transportation and in a RESO Data Dictionary standard manner out to technology vendors and or brokers. The CoreLogic Trestle platform also aggregates data from multiple MLSs and allows the opportunity to provide a RESO Data Dictionary-based data feed across the RESO Web API out to those technology partners, brokers, and data licensees. Those are some examples of how RESO standards are used today in real-world technology and how they're also going to be used moving forward as we're looking at the adoption of the RESO Web API. As a policy reminder, and Danae did educate everyone at the opening, is all realtor-owned or affiliated MLSs must implement RESO standards, including the RESO Web API, by June 30th. How do we get there? We're 2 weeks away. Compliance with this can be demonstrated through the RESO compliance certification process. And as I mentioned, our certification process helps guide you as well as your technology partner into the correct adoption of those standards, and we make sure that everything is taken care of properly as part of the certification process. It is important to note that RESO does certify the MLS directly on the RESO Web API. The NAR MLS policy is geared toward MLSs, not technology vendors. MLSs are bound by the NAR policy, and as such, RESO does provide certification directly to the MLS on the RESO Web API. We do allow MLS technology providers to acquire RESO certification on their technology as well. Just because your MLS technology provider, such as your MLS solution from Black Knight, CoreLogic, DynaConnections, or FBS, can provide out a RESO Web API certification, that does not directly extend certification coverage to the individual MLS. It is important to note that there are many factors there, but if you consider not everyone buys all products from a certain vendor. So it may be that you buy products from multiple vendors and you choose to use one provider for your MLS system, but you choose to use another provider for the RESO Web API adoption. And so it is important to note that. I am often asked what happens on July 1st. We have an official message for you from NAR, from the National Association of Realtors, regarding the standards adoption deadline for the RESO Web API. There's a 45-day non-formalized grace period to handle scheduling and timing issues related to conformance. The focus is not on consequences, but on supporting implementation and working directly with MLSs to address obstacles regarding standards adoption and implementation. Only those realtor associations and association-owned MLSs that are in compliance with mandatory NAR policies are eligible to receive coverage from NAR-provided insurance. Adherence to the NAR MLS policy is required on mandated policy items to be able to obtain and retain the NAR-provided insurance policy. In addition, association charter revocation is always a potential consequence of failure to comply with any mandated NAR policy. So now let's talk about how do we get there from the RESO certification aspects. What are the steps that you need to do to get there? We have simplified the process for you for the RESO Web API in regards to certification. 3 weeks ago, the RESO Board of Directors approved initial RESO Web certification for all RESO members who are current on their data dictionary certification will be free. We are going to provide the most simplistic process for you possible to obtain a certification for your RESO Web API implementation as we can, and as such, there aren't any fees or application needs for those members that are already data dictionary certified, and I will go into those processes specifically. Regarding those that are not RESO members or actively certified on the RESO Data Dictionary, the standard RESO certification fee schedule and application process applies to non-members and those not actively certified on the RESO Data Dictionary. For those that are RESO members, and I thank you all for your membership, we have many on the call that are members today. This will be for you that have data dictionary certifications that are active, the process. Step 1, please check with your MLS vendor and ensure they're working on implementing the RESO Web API for you. A simple call or email to your typical contact at your MLS technology provider, and they should know the status and the timing of when they will have the standard adopted and in place for you. We will be at RESO working directly with your MLS vendor to obtain credentials and certify your RESO Web API adoption automatically. What are we doing there? We have sent most of you a notice already that you qualify for the free program as of this week, and we have contacted the MLS vendors, and I will provide a list momentarily of those that have been involved, and we are creating a spreadsheet So the MLS vendor and RESO can work directly to process certifications automatically, and we will notify you along the way, status, success of the implementation and adoption, the formal awarding of the certificate, and we will publish on reso.org/certificates your certification status, just as we've done with the RESO Data Dictionary. We get quite a few inquiries from technology partners worldwide on who has adopted RESO standards. Many technology partners would like to use markets first that have adopted RESO standards because it truly does reduce their cost and time to launch a product in a new market area. They use this website to do a quick check to see if your local MLS is there, to take a look at if they want to look at implementing a product in your market area, or if they would move on to another area that might have already adopted standards. So we publish that formally so that you can tout your certification, and technology partners as well as brokerages can check on the status of their MLSs and know what to expect when they go to ask for a data feed. And then finally, I would love to encourage everyone to publish the RESO certified logo on your website as you are certified. Many of you already signed the RESO trademark agreement that allows you the rights to use the logo on your website and in your material and to tout your certification and correct adoption of the standards. If you have any questions, for those of you that are RESO members with Data Dictionary certification, please feel free to email us at certification@reso.org at any time for status, any questions about your vendor and the timing of us working with your vendor, please let us know. If you do happen to obtain certification, and this applies for the Web API as well as the RESO Data Dictionary, and then you change your product vendors, it happens at time you might do an MLS system conversion and move over from one MLS provider to another, please reach out back to us for recertification. We want to make sure that your new vendor carries over your standards adoption correctly and you retain certified, and we were happy to provide recertification to make sure that the new vendor got it right. I know during an MLS conversion, RESO certification and adoption of standards might not be your #1 priority, but please keep this in mind and let us help you along the way. That's what we're here for. For those MLS technology providers that we are doing direct coordination with, I wanted to provide you with the list today: Black Knight Financial Services, CoreLogic, Dyna Connections, FBS, the makers of Flex MLS, Rapatoni, and SCI Inc., the makers of Navica MLS, all have communications with RESO and are actively in the process of working towards RESO Web API certification. If you have specific questions about your MLS and what their timing is, again, please ask them, and feel free to ask us as well as we continue to work with them. We're open to working with any other MLS partner that is out there and happy to do so. These are the 6 that we have in process today under the guidelines of the free program for members that are already Data Dictionary certified. If you are not currently qualifying for the free processes approved by the board, that's an automatic nature, you will need to apply for certification. So please check with your MLS technology provider and then go to reso.org/certification, apply for certification. There is a fee associated with certification in this slide. There's a fee schedule that is there available based upon your organizational size and if you are or are not a RESO member. We will run the appropriate test and work in conjunction with your MLS technology provider until the certification process is complete. We will send you an electronic signature option for the trademark agreement that allows you to use the RESO certified logos. It is not mandatory to receive certification. It is optional if you would like to use the RESO logos. And then we will send you notice of statuses along the way, the success, award you the formal certification, and publish on reso.org/certificates. And again, for those of you in the standard process, please also Publish the RESO certified logo on your website so you can let your leadership know, your brokers, your agents, and your technology partners providing service that you've adopted RESO standards correctly. And if you have any change in your MLS product vendors, please contact RESO for recertification. I do have a slide available for resources for further information. We have a blog that's available. We have instructionals out there about how to gain the RESO Web API certification specifically. It does include the NAR verbiage regarding the deadline, which I showed earlier, how to apply for certification, how to download the standard if you would like to look at the standards documentation or provide that out to your technology partners. Again, that is free and open to everyone. You can for RESO membership. And we do have a fall conference coming up in October. We sold out in the spring of this year at our spring conference, and there is a link there to allow you to look at the details of our fall conference, where we will be talking a lot about the RESO Web API and demonstrating products surrounding the implementation of APIs, including a show and tell competition where those that have innovated around RESO standards can compete for the innovations that they've created over the past year. This sounds like a daunting task, but I wanted to remind everyone that history says together we can absolutely do it. If we work together between RESO, your MLS technology provider, your brokerages, your agents, your leadership, the partners that use data in your marketplace, we can do this. Today we have over 525 MLS organizations, over 1.1 million subscribers are on MLSs that are RESO Data Dictionary certified. We still have some MLSs that are adopting the RESO Data Dictionary. We have another 20 MLSs in the queue for the Data Dictionary for active certification help and processing, representing another 25,000 MLS subscribers. I know you all put an enormous amount of work into adopting the RESO Data Dictionary. It was much more difficult for you at the local MLS level to work with those MLS fields to make sure they were correct. I'm confident we can do this again, and hopefully we have made it so that the process is not as heavy on you as an organization as the RESO Data Dictionary was. Now I would like to go and introduce again Rebecca Jensen and Michael Werzer. And Rebecca and Michael are going to talk about their expert opinions from the MLS and the MLS technology provider's perspective about the RESO Web API, RESO standards in general, industry best practices surrounding the adoption of standards, and promoting the use of RESO standards in the products and services that your brokers and agents use today. Rebecca, I would like to turn it over to you first, if you're still on the call and available.
I sure am. Can you hear me all right?
I can. Thank you, Rebecca.
Great. Well, thank you. And I just wanted to start out by telling you my personal story with the reason that I got involved in RESO to begin with back in 2011. While I am currently the CEO of MRED, which is one of the larger MLSs in the country, back in 2011 I actually worked at a different MLS that was smaller, and I began my career at that MLS on the help desk back in the 90s, and I remember very clearly personally taking phone calls from new entrants to the industry, whether that was, new agents or brokers that were just coming aboard, or technology providers. And the call was very frequent: what is RETS? How can I get the MLS data to power my business? And so the reason I bring this up is because I like to go from a business standpoint as to the why. Why is it that we want the industry to adopt the API? And RETS is a proprietary language. So if you are a new entrant, then you have to learn what this thing called RETS is in order to get the MLS data to power your business. And software engineers are not cheap by any stretch, and so in order to pay a software engineer to come in and learn what's the equivalent of a new language, it's very time consuming and it's very slow. And the brokers were bearing the full cost of that because the industry with MLSs was so disjointed in the way that they rolled the data implementations out. And so I became involved in RESO to help bring some streamlining and some efficiencies into this process. And when we restructured the organization of RESO back in 2011, we were very deliberate in making sure that RESO represented the cross-section of the entire industry. And I know, Jeremy, you talked about that, but I want to particularly highlight that so everyone understands that the standards are built in conjunction with not only the National Association of Realtors, who's been a huge supporter, but also many different MLSs, many different software vendors, not just MLS providers, but also portals and smaller software providers. Brokers are definitely involved in RESO, as is CMLS and other entities like that. So it truly is a cross-section of the industry working together to pick the best technologies for the industry. And so the API is important to adopt because it takes the industry away from the proprietary RETS standard that served its job very well back in the day, and it really does move it forward to something that a new entrant into the business, whether that's a software engineer or a broker, can look at the specification, and it's being used globally in many, many different industries, and they can easily identify what it is, how it works, and also create this wonderful community of different tools that can be used to help each other. And this really empowers MLSs to provide better services to their brokers, because we all know that brokers like to differentiate themselves, and technology is a big way that they choose to do that. And so if MLSs across the country can implement the API, it will allow brokers to more easily differentiate themselves in any way they choose, and it won't be cost spent trying to figure out how to get the data. It really will enable the brokers to put their focus into differentiating themselves based upon cool new technologies. And so it's a huge benefit to MLSs and brokers in that standpoint. It'll also help MLSs field their calls. Going back to my days on the help desk, it was very time-consuming phone calls to go through and try to explain to somebody how to use RETS and how our RETS might be different from the next MLS's RETS and what they needed to do. Many times I'd have to get our own developers involved in those conversations to work out bugs. And so with the adoption of the API, it really will reduce the cost to the MLS as well. And I think it will also help MLSs with data access and security, because I know in the other MLS that I worked at, quite frequently I would hear, well, your RETS server might be a little bit harder to work from. I know this third source that I can get the MLS data from, and I'm just going to use that. Which is problematic in so many different ways, one of which is the timeliness and the accuracy of the data. MLSs have the most accurate data straight from the source, so the further away that gets from the process, the less accurate and secure the data is going forward. And so the API will enable people to connect directly to the MLS and get real-time information. It'll also reduce the cost to the MLS, because most RETS servers today will transfer the entire data set from the MLS server onto the vendor server, but the API really is designed to real-time access just for the exact data that you need. So for example, if you're on a website and you do a search and that search results in 10 listings coming up as the result, then you only need to pull down 10 listings. You don't need the entire data set to get to those 10 listings. And so it'll make it much quicker and much more secure. And again, I can't emphasize how great it is that RESO is harnessing globally accepted standards, because it really will bring our industry up to current with every other technology industry out there in products. So I know that we can do it, and I just want to say kudos to Jeremy and your team. Adopting the data dictionary with over 1 million people already is huge, and I look forward to similar numbers on the API.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Michael?
Thanks for having me. I'm glad that you have this opportunity to talk to so many MLSs out there. For those of you who are FBS customers, rest assured we're working closely with Jeremy and his team to cycle through all the customers we have and on the Web API. We're very actively engaged with testing their certification tools today, so we expect to be sending out information to you along with RESO as that progresses. But no need to have lots of communications to us about that. It's coming, and I think everything is well on track there. In terms of generally, why is this useful? Why is this important? I think the case for standards is pretty clear. It enables more choice, and that's ultimately what brokers want, what agents want, and what MLSs want. And I think I love to talk about the conversion process, because today it's a pretty difficult process, frankly, often involving the leaving behind of some data, like saved searches, for example. So if you're an MLS and you decide to switch vendors, it's an arduous, difficult process that often leaves behind data. And the changes to the data dictionary, most importantly, but also the Web API, will enable much easier conversions as time goes on. And that gives you more choice. It lowers costs and gives you more choice. Today it's a difficult process. In the next few months, we'll see if the dictionary and the API make a difference. I'm confident that the first people to implement some of these new tools will be companies like MLS vendors, like IDX vendors, and others who are already processing quite a bit of this data. But if the standards do what they're supposed to do, which is enable a much more rapid access to the information, because it's not different in all of from MLS to MLS, that should really open the door to better collaboration, quicker access to getting that information available in the software of your choice, as opposed to having to go to these long, arduous processes just to see if this is software you want to use. So some things that I think you'll see are bigger aggregations of data that make the issues that the industry is facing today with boundaryless MLS systems more likely, so that if you want to collaborate with your local or regional partners in the MLS space, you'll be able to do that much easier, because that data will flow faster, quicker, and at less cost than it would today. It's essentially a way of helping you do the kinds of collaborations that it's clear the industry, the brokerage industry, is asking MLS organizations to do. So I see a huge opportunity there. In addition, as Jeremy mentioned, products like mobile products. If you have a phone and a native application like FlexMLS for iPhone or FlexMLS for Android or Goomsy or any of those kinds of products, they have to work on an API. That's just the nature of it, whether that's an API created by that particular vendor or whether it's a RESO standard API. The reality is you're not going to have the entire MLS system on, and so it has to connect to some server somewhere and search and access and retrieve and display that data. That's the way phones are developed. So mobile development is fundamentally the key product, I think, today for all MLS vendors and agents and brokerages. That's where the most activity is at, and it by definition requires API utilization. And so doing that in a standard way, so that each of these different products works in a similar fashion in that regard, will be very beneficial to the industry in the long run. I'd like to just close my comments with saying this is a process. I think that though the long-term vision is incredibly solid and shows a lot of promise and potential for these standards, and they're critical to ensuring the long-term focus and value of the MLS as a whole. It's not going to be some magic bullet that as soon as this is available, everybody will instantly use it and everybody will immediately gain value from it. Work will still need to be done. A good example is you're already serving a lot of customers, a lot of vendors, a lot of brokerages with RETS 1.8 or 1.7 feeds. And that's fine. Those are perfectly acceptable as they are today. They don't have to go away. They'll continue in existence. And there's not a lot of incentive, frankly, for them to undo that feed and not use that and switch to something else. Where there is a ton of incentive is where you're wanting to create something new. And there, I think, using the standards is where people will really benefit. If you're pursuing a new arrangement or collaboration with a bigger regional, or if you're pursuing new products that haven't consumed your data before, using the new API and the new dictionary compliant data formats makes complete sense. But my point with that is it's going to take time. It isn't going to be some immediate curtain that drops down and there are no more RETS feeds and it's all web API feeds. It is a process that will take years, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean there isn't going to be value both in the short term and in the long term. It's just that it's going to take time. And we all know from the dictionary compliance process, everybody is adopting at a different pace to some degree, right? There are different certification levels, bronze, and I don't even know what they all are, but bronze, gold, et cetera. Jeremy could chime in with more details on that if it's important, but the point is that not every MLS is mapped every single field right away. That will occur again also over time. And so I just encourage you all to have both the long view and the near-term view. The near-term view is to continue to make progress, continue to implement these things, and make them available to vendors, to the industry, with the long-term vision of saying, hey, the world will start changing as we get more and more adoption of these implemented standards. So we're in the implementation phase here right now. We're getting these available, and the next phase is adoption and encouraging people to use these standards. And so it is, again, just something that I think will benefit the industry greatly. We'll look back in 10 years and go, that was a watershed moment, and it's helped us get to where we are. But it's going to take some time along those lines. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to answering any questions.
And can I just say one more thing?
Go ahead, Rebecca.
The adoption. And I know that Jeremy already talked about the RESO logo, but just from my experience here at MRED, I have already had both brokers and software vendors talk about when is MRED going to get the RESO API feed. And especially when you go to a trade show like, NAR Midyear, one of the NAR shows, or any others that have vendors there, they will look for that RESO certified logo to know if their product will work with your MLS. And so proudly display that if you have the RESO certification, because it really will streamline that process. And then also it's on the RESO website, the list of MLSs that are certified.